Hey guys, what's up? Courtney here, and you might remember me from some of my other videos, the CTE Summer Workshop video over curriculum, and I'm sure there's many other ones that are out there. Today I want to talk to you guys about just 6 different things that we're going to talk about, and some of them kind of go together, and it's some of the really valuable pieces of teaching. And I feel that if you get these 6 things down, you'll be pretty good at getting started this year in your new classrooms and teaching. So the first 2 words that I want to talk to you about that kind of go together are the words differentiation and individualization. Now let's start with differentiation. So differentiation is where teachers take different teaching techniques and lesson adaptations in order to teach a very diverse group of students. Students who are at different levels of learning, students who learn in different ways, whether it be auditory, visual, kinesthetic, any of those types of things. And these teachers, they take these different techniques and they make sure that every single one of those students is able to learn in the way that they learn best. That's how we differentiate. And so a lot of times what happens with this is that we get teachers who ask, how am I supposed to do this? Am I supposed to write multiple different lesson plans? Am I supposed to try to create something different for every single one of the students? And the answer is kind of yes and kind of no. You're teaching the exact same thing to all of the students that you want them to learn. You're just teaching it in multiple different ways in order to make it best for the way that they learn. So that's differentiation. The other word that we talked about is individualization. When the pace of learning is adjusted for different students. So as if a group of students don't quite catch on as quick as the rest of the class, you would individualize for those students by adding other different things into your lessons to help them to learn those things over, or maybe reteach those things in a different way, or maybe help them by giving them some extra things to do. You're individualizing for either that group of students or that single child. And you might have to do this because maybe that child has missed a couple of days for being out sick, or maybe that student has missed because they were out for vacation, or because they had a sporting event, or whatever it might be. You might have to individualize for them. You might have to individualize for them because the student is at a different developmental level than the rest of the class for whatever reason. And so you have these 2 different words, differentiation and individualization. And we're going to talk about them here in a second as well when we talk about a couple other words. So the next 2 words that I want to talk about are IEP and 504. And the reason why I'm bringing these up is because an IEP is an individualized education plan. Now, if you know, you see that word individualization or individualized is right there in that plan. It's the individualized education plan, and it's exactly what it says. It's an individual plan for an individual student. Typically it's for a student that has some type of special needs, whether it be a learning disability or even as far as a child who has glasses can actually be on an individualized education plan. And there's a couple things I want you to know about this as we'll dive deeper into the IEP in class. But a couple things I want you to know is that 1, it is a legal document. That means that yes, you have to follow what that document says. You can't just say, no, I don't believe that student needs these things, and then, throw it out the window or throw it in the trash can, because it is a legal document. And so not that I want you to worry or fear about that, but I do want you to know that you have to do what the IEP says. And so with an IEP, again, it is an individual plan for that student, and it's going to have certain things in it like accommodations and modifications, and we'll get to those words here in a little bit. Now, a 504 plan, in all honesty, I want you to think of a 504 plan the same way that you do with an IEP, because a 504 plan is just for any of those other disabilities that a student might have that are not allowed to go into an IEP. There is a list of things that a child might have that can, in order for them to be tested and be put on an IEP. And then there's pretty much anything else a child can be put on a 504 plan for. And so a 504 plan as well can be very short-lived. So let's say that a student breaks their foot and has to have a cast put on their foot. And so they need to be able to leave class early to get there in the next class on time, and maybe somebody else needs to go with them, or they need a parking space that's closer, like a handicap space or something like that. So a 504 plan can be wrote for those different types of things, as well as educational purposes also. An IEP, though, on another hand, is for educational plans. And so you will see things, whether it be a child with a learning disability or whatnot, that there's going to be specific things in there that show what that child is allowed to have during class, at home, for things that pertain to school, and other things that go along in the school system. The next two words that I want us to talk about are those two words that I brought up during the IEP, which are accommodation and modification. The best way that I can explain this is that accommodation changes the way that the student learns the material. Modification changes what the student is taught or is expected to learn. And so these are the two differences there. And in the IEP, you're going to find all of this in section 7. You're going to find accommodations and you're going to find modifications. And so accommodations, if it just changes the way that a student learns material, then we're looking at things like guided notes, and we're looking at things like extra time on test, or a test being read to them, or maybe going to a quiet room in order to be able to take the test. Any of those types of things. We're looking at different types of accommodations for that student to learn exactly the same material that all of the rest of the students are learning. We see this as well on some of our state tests. So any of the credentials that any of the students in the career tech field might be receiving, you cannot modify what that child is learning. If you were to get your cosmetology license, they could not modify what that child was learning, because they would have to learn all of the same stuff in order to be able to do the job at hand. But they could accommodate that student because maybe that student needs the test read to them. And so majority of these tests now, you're able to click and have the question read to you, that type of thing. And so those are your accommodations. The modification, on the other hand, though, examples would be like rewriting the questions that the student has to answer, or taking away certain answers on the test, actually modifying what that student is learning at that time. It could also be something like different books that the student is learning out of, or possibly doing a pass-fail type of thing for a grade instead of the point system grades, or instead of the letter grades that the other students might receive. So these are just 6 important words for you to know. And I know those are really quick, really brief understanding of these different types of things. But if I could leave you with just a couple different things when it comes to differentiation, individualization, IEPs, 504s, accommodations, and modifications, here's the takeaway. The big thing that if you can get to this, then you're going to be fine when it comes to teaching. If you're already individualizing for every student that's in your program. That means if you are taking time to get to know all of your students and you're learning how they learn the best, right? And you're teaching to each individual student in the way that they learn and where their limitations are at and where maybe their disabilities are at or the way that they learn best, any of those types of things. If you're already doing that, then an IEP, a 504, accommodations and modifications will be no sweat because you're already individualizing for each student. Now, you're going to have some teachers that tell you that that is crazy, that they're going to tell you that that student doesn't need to be on it, or that student doesn't. That is not for us to completely worry about. We do not step into that role until asked to, or maybe we're taking notes on these students or whatnot, because an IEP in all actuality was created in order to help a student get to a certain place and then be able to get off of that IEP. But that's not exactly what happens nowadays. So if you are just making sure that you know all of your students on a personal, individual level, and that you are doing your best to teach each one of them and to get them from point A to point B, whatever that level of success is, then you will do your job and you will not have a problem with any of these things that we talked about today. Obviously, you're going to have questions, and I know you are. You can ask me when we talk next time, or of course, you can ask Eric and he'll answer anything else that you might want to know here today. So thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you had a great weekend, enjoyed yourself, and we'll talk soon. Peace.